Daniel Brooks never expected his old 1967 Mustang to attract attention at the Detroit Classic Motor Show. The single father had spent years restoring the faded car between mechanic jobs and school pickups. Its paint remained imperfect, but Daniel loved it because his late father had taught him mechanics using it. When Daniel arrived, luxury collectors surrounded the newest million-dollar restorations. Their polished Ferraris, rare Porsches, and immaculate American classics sparkled beneath exhibition lights. Daniel parked his Mustang quietly near the entrance. Several collectors noticed its worn chrome, faded blue paint, and mismatched interior before exchanging amused looks among themselves quietly. A wealthy collector named Richard Hale approached first. He wore an expensive tailored suit and spoke confidently about automotive history. After inspecting Daniel's Mustang for less than 30 seconds, Richard laughed. "You brought this here?" he asked. Daniel calmly explained that the car was still undergoing restoration and wasn't finished. Another collector, Victoria Grant, joined Richard and examined the engine bay. She immediately criticized the aftermarket components and questioned Daniel's mechanical knowledge. Daniel didn't argue. He simply explained that every modification had been carefully chosen to preserve the Mustang's original character while making it reliable enough for everyday driving today. Victoria smiled sarcastically and said serious collectors didn't bring unfinished cars to prestigious events. Daniel looked toward his Mustang and remembered his father saying that a vehicle's story mattered as much as its price. He had promised himself never to sell the car until he understood what it truly represented. Daniel's daughter Ava arrived carrying 2 coffees. She was 16 and knew every detail of the Mustang's history. When she heard the collectors mocking her father, she became defensive. Daniel gently stopped her. He told Ava that people were entitled to their opinions and they didn't need to prove themselves. Later that afternoon, a restoration historian named Samuel Ortiz approached Daniel. Unlike the collectors, Samuel didn't judge the Mustang's appearance. He examined its chassis, engine numbers, and original identification plate. After several minutes, his expression changed. He asked Daniel where he had found the vehicle and who previously owned it. Daniel explained that his father had purchased the Mustang decades earlier from a retired racing engineer. Samuel immediately asked to inspect the documentation. Daniel opened a folder containing old receipts, photographs, and handwritten notes. One photograph showed the Mustang competing in an experimental endurance event during the late 1960s. Samuel carefully compared the photographs with the car's markings. Then he called another historian. Within minutes, both men were studying the Mustang with growing excitement. Samuel told Daniel that the vehicle might be one of a tiny number of factory development cars used before a major racing program. The collectors who had mocked Daniel suddenly became interested. Richard asked whether Daniel had considered selling. Daniel laughed softly and said he hadn't. Richard offered $200,000 immediately. Daniel declined. Victoria increased the offer to $300,000, but Daniel still refused, surprising everyone watching. Samuel warned Daniel that the car's value could be dramatically higher if its history was authenticated. He recommended preserving everything exactly as found. Daniel agreed. He and Ava spent the evening organizing documents and scanning photographs. They contacted former racing employees, searched archives, and compared every detail with surviving historical records. 2 weeks later, the evidence became overwhelming. Daniel's Mustang had been used during secret factory testing for an experimental racing package. Only 3 prototypes had survived, and Daniel's car retained an unusually complete set of original components. Experts estimated that the vehicle could command several $1 million at an auction. News spread quickly through the collector community. The same people who had laughed at Daniel's Mustang now wanted exclusive purchasing rights. Offers arrived from wealthy collectors in California, Texas, and Europe. Daniel received one proposal worth $4 million. He stared at the number, but immediately thought about his daughter. Ava asked whether they should sell. Daniel admitted the money could change their lives. He could pay the mortgage, fund her college education, expand his garage, and retire early. Yet selling felt wrong. The Mustang wasn't merely valuable property. It was the last physical connection to his father and their shared dreams. Instead of accepting the highest offer, Daniel decided to finish the restoration properly. He hired trusted specialists, but remained personally involved. Every original component was documented before restoration. The goal wasn't to make the Mustang look new. Daniel wanted to preserve its authentic history, imperfections, and mechanical character forever. Months later, Daniel displayed the completed Mustang at another prestigious event. Its deep blue paint had been carefully restored, original chrome gleamed, and the engine ran beautifully. Visitors gathered around it, but Daniel noticed something different. Nobody laughed anymore. Collectors stood quietly, recognizing that they were looking at history. Richard approached Daniel with an expression completely different from their first meeting. He admitted that he had been arrogant and apologized for judging the Mustang before understanding it. Then he offered $5 million. Victoria matched the offer. Daniel thanked them, but again refused to sell. The collectors finally begged Daniel not to sell the Mustang to anyone else. They explained that the car belonged in a serious historical collection and asked him to let them participate in its preservation. Daniel surprised them by proposing something better, a public exhibition combined with a scholarship program for young mechanics. Victoria agreed to fund the scholarship program, while Richard offered to finance the museum display. Daniel retained ownership and created a foundation honoring his father. Ava became involved too, helping students learn automotive history and restoration. The Mustang became more than a valuable classic. It became an opportunity for others. Years later, Daniel still drove the Mustang occasionally, never forgetting the day luxury collectors mocked it. The car eventually became worth millions, but Daniel valued something greater. It had preserved his father's memory, strengthened his bond with Ava, and created opportunities for young mechanics. The collectors finally learned its true value too.